Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Celtic Transfer Special. We covered Rangers on Tuesday, which means today is all about Celtic. And with me, David Robson, to go through all the latest news of ins and outs at Parkhead is Roger Hanna. Roger, how are we?
Good, thanks David. Edging closer to the end of the transfer window. Only a month to go. We're here on the 1st of August. We've got right through to the 1st of September. I expect a lot more business in the last 4 weeks.
And we're almost time to get the football back up and running as well. Obviously we've had the European games, but Celtic are back in action this Sunday. Flag
Day on Sunday at Parkhead, 4:30 kick-off against St Mirren. It was an interesting game. They finished last season in the league, of course, against St Mirren. They did that historic James Forrest goal in the last minute to keep his record of 16 consecutive seasons, scoring seasons with Celtic, keep it going, and to save Celtic from a defeat on the day they got the trophy. So they'll get the flag. Paul McStay, the maestro, back over from Australia to unfurl the flag on Sunday, and it'll be a party atmosphere, you would think.
Well, it's a party atmosphere. It's been a bit of a frustrating summer overall for Celtic, you would say, and Brendan Rodgers, he's made it clear from the off that he's wanted a few more signings in the door before this game. And obviously we have a bit more of a development this week. You know, he said earlier on, ahead of this tie, that there was some more news coming on this. And then just as we're recording this, there's been a major development. It looks like a new signing's arriving.
Yeah, I think Jahmai Simpson-Pusey from Manchester City, young centre-back, will come in. He's here in Glasgow. He'll go through the formalities this afternoon. I would imagine he would be signed in time for the St Mirren game at the weekend. And it's an interesting position. It is a position that Celtic have looked at for a period of time. Davrotsky's gone, Lagerbielke's gone. There's a real interest from Plymouth and Stephen Welsh. You do wonder if Dane Murray might go out on loan to a Premiership team this season. They've been at Queen's Park before. So that leaves you Carter-Vickers, Trusty, Scales, and now Simpson-Pusey.
Do you think if Pusey obviously is going to come in, do you think it will just be the four of them then? Do you think Welsh will be allowed to move on?
I would imagine, yeah. Brendan Rodgers spoke in the past about wanting 4 sort of senior centre-backs. I mean, you've always got the scope. If Dane Murray goes out or Welsh goes out, you know, they can come back in January. There's always scope to do something. I would think he would go with these 4 centre-halves. The interesting thing for me will be which one of them gets the nod alongside Cameron Carter-Vickers.
Yeah, do you think he's a player, this Simpson-Pusey? He's obviously he featured in the Premier League and Champions League last season. And Man City and Celtic have a bit of a track record of sending players up north. You know, Dedrick Boyata, Jason Denayer, 2 centre-backs. And then kind of more recently you've got Olivier Ntcham and Jeremy Frimpong. Do you think, you know, Simpson-Pusey could have a similar impact?
And Patrick Roberts was another who did have a big impact. Yeah, listen, he could have been, but I haven't seen a lot of the lad. I'd be lying if I said, you know, I had seen a lot of it. What we have seen a lot of is Auston Trusty. And for £6 million, you'd have to say it was a disappointing opening season at Celtic. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Trusty now. If there's a young lad from Manchester City coming in and taking his place, it's a big outlay from Celtic for a player sitting on the bench, twiddling his thumbs.
And we know it's a loan, but do you think there's any chance of making a move permanent?
Listen, I don't know. I haven't seen the detail of it. I noticed Rangers announced Mikey Moore from Tottenham this morning, and there's no option or obligation in that deal. It's a straight season-long loan. So it'll be interesting to see what, you know, City are. They're in charge of the situation. If they don't want an option or an obligation in the deal, there won't be one. It was interesting. I think the lads chosen Celtic. There was interest from Strasbourg. I know there was English Championship teams in the mix as well. And it's the lad himself who has wanted to come here. I don't know what conversations he's had with Brendan or with the club, but he believes this is the best stepping stone, if you like, in his career to get regular first-team football, and that first-team football, he'll hope, will extend to the Champions League as well as domestic football, David.
And you say it's a position that Rodgers has been looking to strengthen. He's wanted a 4th senior player he knows he can rely on, but he's not the only player that's been linked with Celtic over the last few weeks. We've got this Victor Eriksson. Hammarby scored a big goal for them last night to send them through against Charleroi. What's the latest on that one? Obviously with Simpson-Pusey coming in.
Yeah, I think they understand it. I mean, Celtic had Paul Tisdale at the first leg of that game. The suggestion was Eriksson was one that was being looked at. I think that was the case, but you know, Celtic look at a lot of players. They would be looking at a lot of centre halves. They maybe had Eriksson on the list in case the Simpson-Pusey deal didn't go through this week, David. So it has now. It's on the brink of going through. So I think the interest in Eriksson will probably cool, but I think there were other players in that game that Celtic have an active interest in. And listen, that's what Celtic do. That's what Paul Tisdale and his scouting network are there for, to go and try and find up-and-coming players that are within Celtic's price bracket. Just look at the spend so far this summer. Benjamin Nygren's come in, not for huge sums of money. Shin Yamada's come in. Inamura, Hayato Inamura's come in as well. They look to get these little gems that maybe disappear under other people's radars.
Yep, and obviously aside from centre-back, looks like that's covered now if Pusey comes in. Right-back, goalkeeper's not really an issue, but left-back is still perhaps an area for concern.
Listen, it might be. I think Brendan Rodgers has been pleasantly surprised by the level that Inamura's produced since coming in. So maybe Inamura will be the deputy to Kieran Tierney this season. I tend to think a lot of Brendan's focus at the minute is further up the pitch, but it's now going to be... Inamura's got a month, I think, to prove himself that he's ready to be kept and to stay in the first team squad.
There was a bit of chat last night, reports suggesting this Kassam Ouattara from Monaco. It was potentially an option. There was talk, I think it was over reports in France.
I'm always very sceptical when you see reports from overseas, David, that say Celtic and Rangers are in for somebody. That tends to mean an agent's told a journalist, I just mentioned Celtic and Rangers and a couple of teams for Germany and a couple of teams for Spain. I'm not too sure there's a major interest in the lad.
And as you say, for now, Rodgers is probably assessing Inamura, seeing how Tierney's getting on, and if Inamura impresses, that'll probably be his options for the season. There's the Scales as an option there as well, potentially, if need be.
Exactly.
And then you talk about it further up the pitch. Midfield isn't really an area for concern just now, would you say, with,
Not now Nygren's come in. I thought just in terms of quantity, they were probably a body short. A few have gone out in the last couple of years. Odin Thiago Holmes away and out, on loan to the end of the year. Kwon's left for France. I just thought maybe one body short. But if Nygren's going to go in as, perhaps a sort of an advanced number 8, if you like, then that probably negates the requirement for another midfielder.
But then obviously if they're struggling with wingers, then Nygren may have to go out there and leaves you a body shot.
It's really interesting to see the lineup against St Mirren because you can never read too much into selections in pre-season games. Celtic have had 7 friendlies in 4 different countries, a lot of football into the legs of these lads. They'll be ready for St Mirren on Sunday, but it'll be fascinating to see where Nygren plays. Is he in that midfield 3? If so, does that mean Arne Engels doesn't start? Or does he go into one of the wide areas? Where does Maida play as well? Is he on the left or is he through the middle?
Of course. And then we're talking about wingers. That's been the talk of the summer. There's been so many wingers linked. The most recent one is this Jakob Breum. We understand there's been a couple of bids knocked back. He plays for Go Ahead Eagles and they're actually a subject interest from Rangers as well for Oliver Antman. So it's a busy window over there in terms of Scotland and Go Ahead Eagles. But do you think Celtic could go back in for him? Apparently they're standing firm in their £5 million valuation.
I genuinely don't know. There did seem to be a huge discrepancy between Celtic's valuation of the lad and the Go Ahead Eagles valuation of the lad. They also seem to be holding out for £5 million for Antman. So if they get £10 million off Celtic and Rangers, they'll be doing very, very well. Breum is just one. I mean, we spoke about looking at Pusey and looking at Eriksson and having options. I think Celtic have got options there. They've looked at Breum, they've looked at Balikwisha, Antwerp earlier in the winter. Look at Osleter at Sarpsborg in Norway. There are a lot of possibilities there, but they do need away players. And Nicholas Kuhn's gone for a lot of money. Jota's injured to the end of the year. Yang's there, Forrest's there, but with the best will in the world, there were backups last season. You can't imagine Brendan Rodgers wants to go into this season with them as first picks.
And we talk about Balikwisha, it looks like that long-running transfer saga might be finally over. There's talk of this mystery French club that are after him, so he might not become to Celtic after all.
Listen, you just never know what will happen. He started for Antwerp last Friday night when the Belgian League kicked off against the champions USG. He has been one that Celtic have looked at for a long time, but you're never too sure how far up the wish list he is, whether he's top of the wish list or whether he's just a sort of backup if they don't get a Breum or they don't get, someone like that, David. We'll have to wait and see.
And then Tilio, Yang, you expect them to, well, perhaps maybe Tilio in particular, leave once we get more options, Celtic get more options in.
Marco Tilio has been a Celtic player for quite a period of time now and hasn't really been near the first team with the best will in the world, and I don't see that changing now. We said Brendan Rodgers won't want to start the season with Yang and Forrest as his first picks. well, they're ahead of Tilio.
Yeah, of course. And then you look at strikers as well. You got Maeda, Ida, Yamada in as well. Do you think there's scope for another to come in as well, particularly if they're lacking wide options?
Yeah, I know what you mean. You know, if Maeda starts on the left to ease the problems in wide areas, who starts through the middle? For Sunday, I would expect Adam Ida to start through the middle. He did score 20 goals last season. You know, the £9 million is a big millstone around his neck. He's already said he's got ambitions of scoring more than 20 this season. I would imagine he would be the first to get a shot. Yamada's there. Johnny Kenny's still there, despite the ongoing interest from Bolton. Young Callum Osman came up in a lot of publicity from Fulham. So there are numbers there. There's quantity in that centre forward position. But, you know, Brendan would always say you want a wee bit more quality. And I do go back to what he said late last season, that it's always easier for Celtic to get a top-class winger than it is to get a top-class centre-forward. And
just finally, we look ahead to Sunday's game. You say you think, you know, the likes of some of the signings might play. This Pusey might be in the Simpson-Pusey might be in the squad. Who do you think could play a part on Sunday? The new signings, maybe Niagara in particular? Well,
there's a lad who'll play left-back, but I think he wears 63, this lad Tierney. He'll certainly play. I'm not sure that Pusey will be thrown straight in if he hasn't trained with a team. Wouldn't surprise me if it was Scales or Trusty, along with Carter-Vickers. Alistair Johnson's back. I think he did the media today at Lennoxtown, so he'll probably play. Midfield three, McGregor's nailed on, Hitati's nailed on. It's just a case of whether Engels starts or whether Nygren gets into that role. I tend to think Engels will start. Club record signing, David. You don't want to dump him in the bench. And I tend to think you'll probably see a front three of Maeda on the left, Ida at centre forward, and Nygren on the right hand side. He is a versatile player, Benjamin Nygren. I think Celtic fans will have high hopes. Brendan Rodgers already said what he's seen from the Swede in pre-season. He's got high hopes for him. I think he'll start, and then the bench will be, you know, Yang, Forrest, Yamada, McCowan, Bernardo, and you know the defensive cover. Well, it should be a big day ahead and a big weekend ahead as league action final returns. Over 3 days. I know, it's going to be a big one. Exciting times ahead. Well, hopefully we'll have a bit more to come in terms of transfer news over the next few days and weeks. I'm sure it'll be a busy August ahead, full of transfers from both sides of Glasgow and across Scotland, and stay up to date with everything across all football, all sports with the Scottish Sun. Thank you very much.